Hello, everyone, and I'm glad to welcome you to today's webinar organized under the umbrella of the ICFJ Panel Award Forum on Global Crisis Reporting. And my name is Paul Adepoju, and I'm the forum's community manager. And we have two special guests with us today that they will be sharing their personal experience with journalists from different parts of the world, such that we can apply information and insights that they will be sharing with us in our personal career progression plans. So last month, ICFJ announced that journalists from Cameroon and Morocco won the 2022 Michael Elliott Award for excellence in African storytelling for their stories that exposed climate change impacts in Africa. The winners, Nalova, Akua, and Khalid, are my guests today. So let me say hello to Akua, who is joining us live from Cameroon. How are you doing today, Akua? And thanks for joining us. Are you there?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. It is great pleasure.
Cool. Yes,
Yay.
Thank you very much for joining us. And also from Morocco,
I don't know.
joined by Khalid. Oh, yes, yes. So hello, Khalid. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Paul. I'm so great, and it's my honor to be here. And I hope we can do a useful conversation and good tips for the audience.
Yes, thank you very much. Which city in Morocco are you joining us from?
I am now in the middle of Morocco. It's a city called Rish. It's in the southeast of Morocco.
Thank you very much. Hope I get to visit someday. And to all our participants, we would also like to know where you are joining us from. If you can use the chat box on the Zoom platform to tell us where you are joining us from, we are going to appreciate you. And you may not know much about our panelists today, so I'm going to give you a brief information and profile that we have that you can know about them. So Khalid, who spoke last, is an award-winning freelance journalist from Morocco, and he specializes in covering environmental, social, and political issues in North Africa and the Middle East. He is a member of the World Federation of Science Journalists, and he has more than 5 years of experience as a journalist. He also holds a master's degree in journalism. And in addition to winning the Elliott Award, he was also shortlisted for the Livingstone Award in the International Reporting category, in addition to the One World Media Awards in the Popular Feature category. Akua, on the other hand, who is joining us from Cameroon, is also a journalist that is passionate about telling stories that serve societies, and in addition to writing articles that give a voice to the unheard, and writing that puts the spotlight on issues that would otherwise have remained in the shadows. He has earned a lot of bylines in several top media outlets, including the BBC, Euronews, Zenga News Service, the Hip Hop Times, and African Arguments. So this is just a nutshell of the impressive works that these two journalists have been joining us from. I've been working on. So we are really glad that you'll be joining, that they're able to join us today. And if you have any question for them, please do not wait until the end of the presentation. You can go ahead and use the Q&A box option on the Zoom platform, and we are going to address these questions at the right time. I know that Akua has a presentation that he has prepared, and we would like to start this conversation with that. And this will be largely an interactive session. So at the end of Akua's presentation, I'll be back with the interactive session. So Akua, are you ready for us?
Yes, I think I'm ready.
Yes, so you can share your screen and directly engage our audience. I'll be back with the interactive session.
Okay, so are you getting me, please? Is everybody getting me?
Yes, yes, we are. Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm so sorry, my video is not on because the connection here is not the best.
It's okay.
All right. So today I want my presentation to focus on investigative journalism because I think investigative journalism is the core of journalism. So we need to start by understanding why is investigative journalism so important. To understand that it has brought down cartels, governments, strong men and women, corporations. It is the beacon of journalism, true watchdog. It also strives to stand for the voiceless, the powerless, and tells the truth. Some characteristics of investigative stories. You need to go beyond the basic facts because anything that doesn't go beyond the basic facts is just news. It's no longer investigative journalism. You've got to be analytical. It needs to be uncovered. It takes time. Investigative journalism, you don't just do it overnight. You need to follow some key steps to be able to come up with a story that impresses the public. And then it needs to explore big issues too, but also minute issues that you can blow them out. And then it aims to spur an action or a change. Because if you want to investigate something, it means you've noticed that something is not working. So you need to now use your story to spur action. Then looking at the characteristics of an investigative journalist, you need to be a seeker of truth. You need to be curious. You need to be persistent. You need to be a scientist. Scientist means you need to master the facts. You need to be factual in everything you need. And then you need to be a good storyteller in order to be an investigative journalist. And then next, we find the story. Some coaching tips begin with a small idea. Every story often starts with a small idea, then follow up on a tip. You need to pay attention to gossip here and there. You need to be observant in everyday situation. You need to look at everything happening around you. You need to scan the briefs, spot the spread problem in a daily story, find the interesting in the mundane. There are many issues in our society we think they are mundane, yet we can explore them to come up with a story, an investigative story. And then we need to replicate and investigate them done elsewhere because there are many investigative issues you read about Kenya, Zimbabwe, South Africa. You need to replicate it in your country because human beings are the same everywhere. You need to read the fine print and footnotes of those who master the journalism art. Then you need to look for the similarities in seemingly unrelated events. Work backward from a problem to its cause. Next, we're going through the investigative process, working from outside, that is using secondary sources, using primary documents, paper trails, and then talking to the people involved, using data to tell a complicated story. Now, when you want to choose what to investigate, here are some of the useful tips. The first step is always to choose a subject. It can be a corruption case, it can be unsafe workplaces, it can be under declaring emissions by government. It can also be a mismanagement case. Sometimes investigations begin with tip-offs from a source or a stranger, a news story or event. These need in-depth treatment. Sometimes investigations begin by noticing something unusual. And then if you want to choose what to investigate, key questions always come to the mind. How is something supposed to work and how is it working? Who are the winners? Who are the losers? How and why? When a patient dies at a care home, is it natural death? Is it a problem with caregivers? Is it health workers? Is it a problem with the entire system? Those are some of the questions you need to seek to answer when you want to embark on an investigative story. Then choosing what to investigate. Use information already published to answer basic questions, like news reports, for example. You need to make sure the information is verifiable and verified. Secondary documents too are very important because they lead to primary sources. And then choosing what to investigate, primary documents matter a lot because you need to always assume that a primary document exists somewhere. It can be on the internet, it can be in a laptop, it can be anywhere. And then institutions and people have a paper trail. When a government, for example, procures something, look for the tender document, the procurement meeting minutes, quotation from other bidders. Then use this paper trail to check for conflict of interest, whether it was declared or not. And then choosing what to investigate, the human sources, documents and databases will help you to locate the human sources. Here we are talking about the actors. And then information from documents can also help you to construct interview questions, because you need to understand what you want to investigate. You need to master, know everything, what is at stake, what are the key priorities. And then you need to refrain from interviews until the paper trail is finished. Then document information works as a reality check in case the source decides to lie or omit some facts. And then think about approaching associates, past associates. And then human sources can help you to interpret the document. And then some research techniques. You need to do your background checks for the institution and the directors, do the paper trail. And then why? What is the company bidding for a tender of an institution is owned by one other director? Some fundamental principles here matter a lot. Excuse me, let me click. I want to take you to Williams' 11 steps as far as investigative journalism is concerned. First, we have the planning. How do you intend to collect and file the information? Who is going to perform what task and on what schedule? Who is responsible for collecting documents, analyzing databases, finding the interviewing sources, transcribing interviews, writing and copy editing? Those are the questions you need to seek to answer when you embark on any investigative story. Then we talk original research. You need to follow the paper and people trail, follow the money. And then evaluation. Should the project continue? Should the focus be revised? Writing and rewriting, final evaluation, publication, and follow-up. Then writing the story. This is the most important phase of an investigative story you intend to write. Maybe it is the most difficult part of a process. It can be the most difficult to get started. You may not feel comfortable with your conclusion. You may want more time. You may fear that you don't have enough information and a need to interview more people. The drafting process begins. You need to develop your own system, follow the 4 C's system. The 4 C's system include complete, clear, convincing, and compelling. The first draft, making it complete. You need to write an initial draft with as few holes as possible. Give the reader enough information. Think about the central characters. You need to identify the problem. Include everything that makes your case, and then new questions may arise as you write the draft. The second draft, making it clear. You need to use a 4-step process here by eliminating the non-essentials, by adding back information, giving the story scale, and then setting up a story structure. When we talk of a story structure here, this is what it is. Focus structure focuses on one person who illustrates the problem. Chronological structure organizes information chronologically, does not have to move strictly from beginning to end. And then covering the narrative structure. Here you need to tell the story from different perspectives. And then the MacGuffin structure. This follows someone or something through a meandering story. And then the ABC structure, which has to do with the action, background, conflict, development, and end. And then the third draft, which is making it convincing. This entails convincing the reader with evidence, adding back information needed to convince, and then using sets of 3 examples, quotes from experts, anecdotes, and all the like. And then you need to use examples, but don't overload. Don't overload with the examples. If not, it is going to be boring. This is a sketch of what I've been talking about. You see the lead, for example, it needs to begin with an anecdote or a scene setting that pulls the reader in. The note graph summary of your few section, what the problem is, why is it happening, how it works, how we get here, solutions that could solve it or lessen the harm. Fourth draft, making it compelling. You need to add compelling details here. You need to use the story movement, that is rising action, tension, pace, and the final pieces. Review the paragraph by paragraph, add quotes, anecdotes, and final facts. And then verifying the story. Writing a story is one thing, and then verifying is another. Because in the course of looking for the facts, you might have misquoted or misrepresented some facts. So you need to go back to the story and then verify it. Verification here means checking paragraph by paragraph, checking on where information came from, who said it, what document was used, have someone double check the math, verify each other's information on team projects, due diligence. In investigative journalism, the stakes are high and mistakes are very, very costly. Hello, are you with me?
Yes, we are with you.
Yes, I think I'm done. That is the little presentation I had to make.
Oh, thank you very much. Can you stop sharing the screen?
I'm so sorry if I was too fast.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Thank you very much, Akua. We'll be back to you. And then Khalid. Are you there, Khalid? I think your mic is off. While we wait for Khalid, Akua, I would like you to take, thank you for that really thorough.
Hi,
oh, yes, yes, I can hear you now.
I am here now.
Yes, so I would also like you to give your remarks regarding your talking points before we, yes, so you have the floor now, Khalid.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Akua, for your idea and your course. I think the most essential thing in journalism is the story. I mean, if you have a great story, you will have a good structure of your writing and your style of writing. So I have published before 2 articles about how to write a great story, whether about coronavirus or climate change. I am going to share the link. One was published on Night Center, and the second was published on Society of Environmental Journalists. Sure, those articles are very long. I won't talk about it a lot, but just a simple idea. Just a simple idea how we can make a great story. I think the story should be important and accurate and clear. But when we say important, we mean, is your idea well defined? The more specific, the more is better. Does your idea have value? Does the public need it? And for the clarity, is your story understandable? And can you shorten it in 3 sentences? And finally, must be accurate. Do you use trusted sources and data and scientific sources? However, you can write a good story, but you might not win an award, because the competition is very competitive. So I have some tips for journalists to enhance their chances to get an award. So these tips are the first apply for many awards, not just one award, because if I mean there are many awards according the field. Second, get support letters, maybe 2 or 3 from your editor, publisher, or someone who is relevant. And the third step, before you apply, read the call and understand well what they are looking for. Then prepare well all materials they need and apply carefully the form. That's the main idea I want to share about how to get an award or a successful submission. Yes, Paul.
Thank you very much, Khalid and Akua.
Welcome.
And it's really, you guys, the two of you, you've shared really insightful and very, very important advice. If I will start from where Khalid stopped, you mentioned the fact that 3 key elements of a page is its importance, its accuracy, and its clarity. As a freelancer myself, I cannot agree more to that. Sometimes, not just in winning awards, but even getting stories commissioned to you, sometimes you have to go over the pitch again, go over it again, and ensure that you really have something that is strong enough for the story to go forward. So Akua, I will come to you now and ask, take us through a practical guide regarding how did you get the story idea that you pitched for the Michael Elliott Award, and what was your thought process? What was the application process for you like? Akua, are you with us?
Yes, are you getting me?
Yes, you can go ahead now.
I'm sorry, my connection here is terrible. That's why my video is not on. So please bear with me.
It's okay.
So it's just a funny process. I just set out to do a story like any other that I've often done. So it happened one day that I was browsing on my Facebook page, and then I came across a photo. It is often said that a photo is worth 1,000 words. And it is from this story that I agree with that assertion. Because when I came across that picture, it depicted women who were struggling to uproot a strange weed from a lake. So when I saw it, I became so intrigued. I had to write to the person who shared it that what is happening here. I didn't even know it occurred in Cameroon. It didn't even occur to me that that lake was found in Cameroon. That is when the person told me that it is actually a lake in Cameroon, which is currently being choked by an invasive weed known as the Savinia molesta. Then I asked the person further, could you put me in contact with any resource person whom I can interview to do the story deeper? Fortunately, the person helped me with a contact of somebody who is actually monitoring the spread of the weed in the lake. So now I called the person and then I met him. I asked him a number of questions, but also most importantly, I did a lot of research. I went to the internet, I typed Savinia molesta. What is Savinia molesta? Because that was my first time of hearing about that name of that weed. It is when I typed that I saw a number of publications that have been written on it, that Savinia molesta is an invasive weed. It's an aquatic fern which spreads in water. I mean, it spreads within every 10 days, it doubles in size. So now when I met this person, I asked him that, what is this weed all about? He talked to me a lot about it. Now I knew that the next stage for me was to go down and see it for myself. So I took it upon myself to go to the Cameroonian coastal town of Edisange, where this lake is found. And then I had to interview many women it might intrigue you that this town has a population of 33,000 people. And of this number, 80% of them depend on this lake because this lake has about 18 families of fish, crocodiles, monitor lizards, African manatee, I mean a number of aquatic species. So about 80% of these 33,000 people depend on this lake, meaning they do fishing to be able to send their children to school, to be able to take care of their daily lives and all the like. So that there lies the importance of the lake. Now I interviewed them, the difficulties they face. After that, I went back to my first resource person, who happens to be a soil science researcher. And then I asked him a number of questions relating to how come did this weed appear in this lake? What happened? Because from my research, I discovered that the weed started in northern Brazil and southern Argentina. So I asked him, how come did this weed come right into Cameroon? He told me, yes, pollution also enhances the spread of the weed because Cameroonian town of Douala, where the lake is found, is an industrial city. It is purely an industrial city. So industrial waste that are emptied into the ocean, into the waters of the coastal city, they are now facilitating the spread of the weed in that coastal area. But it can also be spread by humans, by animals, by water currents, and even by boats. When boats are moving, let's say from southeastern Brazil to Cameroon, it can carry the weed right into Cameroon. Then I asked him further, how can this weed be eradicated? Can it be completely eradicated? What happens? What is the solution? That is when he told me that there are actually beetles, there are small insects which live exclusively on this weed. Then I knew I found a story. I asked him, so how does it work? He told me, wow, this is how it works. Actually, we have already elaborated a plan to import some of the weevils into Cameroon, where we are going to deploy them into this lake. And now once they are into the lake, they are going to live on the weed. They are going to eat the weed on a daily basis and it is going to disappear. That is when I started my investigation afresh. I typed on the internet, how can weevils, how can tiny weed-eating beetles, restore a large lake like this? Because the lake is 4,000 meters square. That is when I came across a lot of scientific publications. I learned that similar situations were observed in Zimbabwe, South Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, Australia. Unfortunately, the publications I came across, I saw emails of some of the scientists who worked on those control mechanisms in those countries. Unfortunately, I wrote to them, like in the presentation I just did, I talked of replication, need to replicate what happens in other countries, need to do some similarity. So now I wrote to them that Cameroon is facing a very difficult problem. There is a giant lake in Cameroon wherein, 33,000 people depend on this lake, but now the lake is invaded by a strange aquatic weed. So I am told that there is a weed-eating beetle. There are insects that live exclusively on this. And I understand your country faced the same issue. So how did it happen? Can you share the experience with us? I contacted a researcher in Australia, in Senegal, and in South Africa. So they were very open. They detailed out how the weevils can effectively control the water weed. Then I knew I found a story. So initially when I discovered it, I pitched it to Zenga. It was published. The BBC saw the story. They got interested in it. They reached out to me. And then I also wrote the piece which fetched me this award. So that is the whole truth about it. From a mere Facebook page of women struggling to weed out invasive weed, I came up with a story that has two aspects. One, it is a scientific breakthrough that minute beetles can save an entire lake from a strange aquatic weed. And secondly, I had to give it a human angle by talking to the women who depend on the lake, the fishermen who depend on the lake, how it affects them. And I came up with this, a blend of what you see that fetched me this award.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Except you may have another question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Akua. So I also like Khalid, if he can what can you tell us about how you also got your story idea and how you put it together? Khalid, your mic is off.
Sorry, yes, Paul. Actually, I started covering climate change since 2018, but in Arabic at that time. I noticed that there is a serious environmental danger, but nobody cares in our region, I mean in North Africa and the Middle East. So I tried to focus on this topic. But I was always wanting to write about my original region where I grew up in Morocco, which is Tafilat, and how it's dying due to climate change and extreme poverty. So when I saw a call from climate grant from Candid Foundation, I told to myself that time maybe it's time to cover this forgotten area. So I pitched them. After a while, I was lucky and I was selected of one the selected nominator. So I worked on that story. Yes, Paul.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And then Akua, there is this with your personal experience. So I think Khalid mentioned from his angle the kinds of stories that he believes would actually win awards. So from your personal understanding too, what do you think ranks high when you see a story that think this will be an award-winning story? What comes to your mind?
That is a difficult question that you're asking me, because if I tell you when I set out to do this story, I ever imagined it could fetch me an award, I would be telling a lie. I mean, I just set out to do a story like any other, which is what any other journalist could have done, because the story, it might intrigue you to know that the story, many outlets had already treated the story in Cameroon. So Al Jazeera had treated it, African News had treated it, Dutch Welle had treated it, a number of outlets. So they were only focusing on the problem, which is the Sardinia weevil. They were only focusing on the problem that a Cameroonian lake has been invaded by a Sardinia weevil, by a strange aquatic weed. So now when I came in, I needed to take an original angle. I needed to shift from the problem and then now drive towards the cause and the solution. Because most of the stories that, most of the outlets that treated the story, they only focus essentially on the problem. This lake is invaded by a strange weed, and it ended there. But I took off mine from there. What causes the presence of this water weed in this lake, and how can they be eradicated? And then I came up with the story I came up with. So to me, what can actually fetch an award is just, first of all, you don't need to have it in mind that I'm writing this story to fetch me an award, because various media outlets, they have their editorial guidelines. So when an editor commissions a story, he tells you, I want you, because the outlet that published the story, the BBC Feature Planet, it is a solutions-oriented, solutions journalism platform, which focuses essentially on solutions to modern day problems, especially environmental problems. So I was only guided by their editorial standard. So if you want to know how can a story fetch me an award, you need to just go deeper. You need to look at various angles to the story. Don't just focus on the problem part of it. Try to focus on the cause of the problem and find out the solution. Try to be very encompassing in your story. Try not to leave out anything in the story. Explore every possible angle. And don't just talk to people whom other media houses have been talking to. Try new faces, new voices. They are going to reveal to you a lot, things that others have not been able to get.
Yeah, thank you very much. So Khalid, I'd like to come to you. You are a freelancer, and sometimes freelance journalists, if you look at how some awards are set up, they tend to be designed for journalists that work for media houses. So as a freelancer, what advice would you give to individuals that are also freelancing and they are doing the hard work and they think they deserve recognition for their own hard works too? What are your suggestions?
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. As a journalist, a freelance journalist, I think that's a hard job because freelance is not like regular journalist, because freelance has lack of money, has lack of orientation. So all job must do alone. But I think a good point in the other side. For example, they are independent, they are through, and they have time, so they can work on a long story, and they can do whatever they want without limited. I have some useful tips for freelance journalists to do great work, which are, for example, freelance journalists must organize his time and must organize the work, because you have no boss now, someone who can tell you do that or don't do that. So you need to be responsible for your work and your time and your day. Also, freelance journalists must looking for other financial resources, not just work, not just work. I mean, without good money. So they need to look for grants, for example, awards, and other financial resources. But the work or the story is the most important. If you do a great work or a great a lot in your career, so just focus on the story and especially the quality of story. I mean, focus on the quality journalism, not just news. Focus on the long form. I shared before 2 articles. They are full of useful tips. Might help journalists in general to do a great work. Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yes.
So, Akua, do you also have any advice for freelancers?
Yes, certainly I do have. Because first of all, as a freelancer, if you want to stand out, you need to read widely the work of those who master their business. I mean, I spend my time reading online, not just any kind of a story. I mean, I follow a lot of journalism awards, like the FEDSIBO Award, the True Story Award. I mean, there are a couple number of awards, including even this African Excellence in Investigative Journalism. So there are many awards that you need to follow, not just applying. Once a short list is published, you need to read through all the stories. And then once the winners are declared, you need to read through their stories. You will see that their stories actually stand out. So I've always been following various journalism awards, not necessarily applying, but I read to savor their work, to see what they have done extra that actually made them to stand out. So I spend my time reading stories of those who know their work, and then reading any story. Once you read a story about something in India that captures the attention, then you look around you too. because human societies, I mean, it is unique. Whatsoever interests me in India, why can't I replicate something about it in my own country? So my advice is just to read widely, not just any stories, read award-winning stories. There are many journalism awards that are being done every year, including the Pulitzer Award, many awards. You need to read those stories that are shortlisted and those that have won. And then you are going to notice an improvement in your writing. And then once you see a tip, you have a number of ideas how you can weave it into an interesting story. So read, and read the works of those who master their business. That's my advice.
Yeah, thank you very much. Don't stop reading, according to Akua. So we have a question for Akua that I would like Akua to take. And I'd like to see if I can share it from here. Yeah, so the question is from Rachel. Akua, are you a science journalist? And how did you handle the science jargons, which a lot of journalists, as myself, find them difficult to interpret? How do you manage that? Akua, that question is for you.
Wow, that's a very intriguing question. Initially, I mean, when everybody read that story, they asked me if I'm a scientist. You know, journalism, they always say journalism is the mother of all professions. I mean, I just wore the shoe of a scientist to write that story. That's why at the beginning of this presentation, I said I had that challenge of balancing the story of a scientific breakthrough, which means, I mean, an experiment of a lake. They are going to deploy weavers into the lake, which are going to weed out the alien species. So I did, first of all, I'm science inclined. Actually, I did science in the secondary school. But as a journalist, you've got to cover everything. Journalism is the mother of all profession, meaning at any point in time when you want to do a science story, you need to write it using those jargons. As a sports journalist, there are particular sports jargons you are supposed to master. I mean, even if you are an agriculture and an environment journalist, you need to master all those jargons. Like I said, when it was my first time of knowing about this alien species, was my first time of knowing about this lake in Cameroon. I didn't even know. So it is just the result of intensive research. I did a lot of research. And then as a journalist too, you know, a journalist is a communicator. You need to demystify every big word for the understanding of the public. Those are the issues I had in mind when I came up with the story. I had to render it palatable, not just to scientists, I mean to environmental researchers, but to the ordinary man. And that is the work of you as a journalist. You need to bring down, you don't need to break the news, you need to break down the news for the understanding of every person.
Khalid, do you also have any advice?
Yeah. Just two ideas. And for all journalists, don't be afraid to write about what concerns your mind and your heart, no matter how it's silly or forgotten to the world, just to do it. When you write about some topic that burn you inside, that concerns you, certainly you will do a good work. And the second thing is read the best of the best, not just read anything. Read, unfortunately, the internet full of the winning stories. For example, in the website of Pulitzer, Long Livingston Award, or Michael Elliott, or other prestigious awards. So that will help you a lot, and those stories will inspire you in your writings. So read the winning story especially. Yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we have a special request from our let me see if I can get this. Yes, from Daria. Daria would like to have the links to your stories, and Yes, so can you, if you quickly have access to the links to your stories, please share it in the chat box. Akua, can you also do the same? And so that you can, participants can go ahead and actively engage with them. So there is also this trend now about, I would like to have your thoughts about what impact do you think your story has had, and whether journalists, individual journalists, should be committed to ensuring that their stories have impact, or just getting the story written. So the issue of impact, because this is something that many awarding organizations do ask for, what impact has your story had? So how do you suggest journalists should handle that? I'll start with Akua.
Okay. Like I said a while ago that the story that fetched me this award have already been treated by a couple number of outlets in Cameroon. So they were only focusing on the on the problem, which is the presence of the strange aquatic weed on the Cameroonian lake. So I took off from there. I didn't just focus on the presence, but on the cause. What causes this weed to be present in the lake? And how can the weed be eventually eradicated? How can we solve this problem? So that is how I weaved the story and then came up with what I did.
Then what about impact? What impact do you think? Yeah.
All right. It might intrigue you to know that the deployment of the weavers into the lake, it delayed a lot, because initially the Cameroon government was skeptical. They didn't authorize the deployment of the weavers into the lake because they were afraid that by deploying the weavers, they can end up causing more harm than good. So the scientists who were working on that, they had to convince the government time upon time. I think my article too played a big role, because I've written a lot on it, not just for the BBC, I've written for Zenga News and then Euro News Green. So part of the advocacy I was doing in my journalism was to show that this problem Cameroon is facing has also been faced by other countries. Like I did mention in the story, we had the same problem in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Australia. So by doing that comparative analysis, that this is the same problem that this particular country faced, and this is how they tackled it. So I think my story did a great deal in convincing the government to finally authorize. It is just a few months back that Cameroon government finally authorized, because the weavers, about 6,000 of such weavers were imported into Cameroon, and they are currently being deployed into the lake. So the weed has covered 70% of the lake. The lake is 4,000 hectares, and then the aquatic weed, the strange carpet grass on the lake, has covered 70%. And there are 3 strategies through which they can be weeded out, through which they can be eradicated. One of such is manual removal. We call it mechanical control, meaning they need to remove it with the hand. But it has a lot of disadvantages. First, it is going to be very tedious. And secondly, it is unrealistic, because after 10 days, the weed regenerates, it doubles in size. So it is unrealistic if you want to start weeding out 70% of a 4,000 hectare lake. And then the second method is mechanical control. It's chemical control, I beg your pardon, which has to do with engaging herbicides, deploying herbicides into the lake, but it is dangerous because it will end up killing the different aquatic species in it. So it is not environmentally friendly. So the weavers solution is the best, and it is the only environment friendly method which has worked in other countries. So why shouldn't it work in Cameroon? And that is how I ended my story. So that is the impact of my award. It sought to convince the authorities that this is the same problem that these countries face, and this is how they handled it, and it worked. So why not Cameroon?
Yeah, thank you for that passionate response. And it's actually clear that you actually understood the subject that you wrote on. I think your knowledge of the problem that your story was based on is not in doubt. And that's a lesson that I think every journalist on this call should take home today, which is you cannot win an award for a story that you barely understand. If there is anything that Khalid and Akua, they've been able to demonstrate today, is the fact that they are well thorough in that subject. So please endeavor to be thorough in the subject that you're focusing on. So Khalid, too, can you also tell us if there's any impact that your story has had? Your mic is off. You're muted, Khalid.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, as you know, my story is about the impact of climate change on Morocco and the oasis in the southeast of Morocco. My story got a great attention while internationally and nationally because it's based on a real and personal story that shows a proof about climate change and people who don't believe climate change. So because I show clearly that my town and my original village was dying and destroying the impacts of climate change. When I published my article, many people didn't know that there is such area in Morocco. So a lot of people now there is oasis in the southeast of Morocco, and there is hard impacts because of climate change on that area, and got a great attention from many people. So yes, now it's obvious that this area has a many problem related to the climate change. For example, the lack of water, the diesel, and the great heat in that area. So I think I did some light on that problem in that area. Yes, Paul.
Okay, thank you very much. As we race towards the last few minutes, I'll go back to Akua. And so going forward, so what is next for you as a journalist? And what kind of impact do you expect to make? What kind of changes do you expect your stories to drive? And what kinds of awards are you looking forward to winning? So I'll start with Akua, then Khalid will follow.
All right. I mean, it is now that I feel that my career as a journalist is just getting started with this award. So it actually came as a surprise, and most especially as a recognition that what I do is important. So this award has actually bolstered me, my effort. It's now that I really feel that I'm a journalist, and now it's a call for responsibility. To me, it comes with a lot of pressure because every word I write now, it matters a lot to me because the public looks up to me a lot. Now, this is an award-winning journalist. Look at what he is writing. So to me, this award comes with a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility. I now need to stand up and write similar stories. Every story I'm going to handle now, I intend to go deeper and deeper. I need to go in depth. I need to explore every angle such that it stands out from every other story. Yes.
Yeah, my mic was off. So what about you, Khalid? What's next for you? Your mic is off too, Khalid.
Yes. Currently, I am focusing on covering climate change issues in Morocco, especially the impact of climate change on water and on groundwater and the green and forest. So yes, I am trying to spread some light about this dangerous danger and this environmental danger, because people here actually don't care about environmental problems. They have big problems, but you know, the climate problem is a really big problem, especially in the future. So I try to contribute to fight this international crisis. Yes. Yes, Paul.
Yeah, thank you very much, Khalid. And so this is my last question for each one of you. So in a nutshell, probably in 1 minute, Akua, what's the summary? How will you summarize your points? What do you think should be the take-home point for our journalists joining us today? So what's the take-home point for them?
Okay, to me, my take-home point is that as a journalist, when you set out to do a story, just imagine that your life depends on it. Imagine that the life of the community, the life of the people you are writing about, the life of the central characters of the story depend on what you are writing out. Just imagine yourself that this is my last story as a journalist. Put in your utmost best in every story you write, and then read extensively the works of those who master their business, the works of award-winning journalists, and then you are going to stand out. And then always drift away from the problem. Also look at the cause of every issue you are tackling. Also look forward to the solution. How can this issue be resolved? Those are my words.
What about you, Khalid?
Yes. Yes. I think my last advice for youth journalists is to be more. To know more about their topic and what they are talking about. So before you write about something, read it really good about that topic. Then you will have some background to understand it and to write about it. The second, as I said before, don't be afraid to write what you think it's matter, no matter how people see it. So be courage or be through to handle topic sensitive topics like corruption or climate problems. And this the other advice, it's when you try to pitch a publisher or editor, don't choose a blurry or general or known topic or idea. Try to choose an original angle and a new angle and accurate angle. You should not just some blurry or general idea, and try to do some plan of work, so publisher and editor can understand your plan and your idea. I mean, you need to do what activity you are going to do and the timeline of your story. So that's all I have, I think. Thanks, Paul.
Yes, thank you very much, Khalid. Thank you, Akua. Congratulations on the award. And we are very happy with the insights that you've shared with us. And we wish you the very best in everything that you do. And many thanks to all our forum members, everybody that started this call with us and stayed to the very end. We appreciate you very much. And so next week will be interesting. And we are going to, the best way for you to benefit from what we have next week is for you to be a subscriber to the ICFJ's newsletter. It's really, really important. We are going to be, it's going to be very, very special. It will be something unlike what we've ever done. And I've been planning this for weeks, and I can't wait to share what we have put together for you for next week with you. So if you are not a subscriber to the ICFJ newsletter, please, I encourage you to subscribe right now. Let me see if I can get you the link so that you can be a part of our subscription, and so that we can really, you can get what we are sharing with you next week directly in your email. So so please just be on the lookout for a special email from us next week, and which will contain lots of resources. So if you are not a subscriber, please just check out the link that I've shared with you right now. Click it and be on our subscription list. And another thing, I know there is a lot of requests for Akua's presentation. Please, Akua, kindly forward us. Kindly send it to the email address, to my email address, and we will also share it with thousands of forum members on our Facebook group. So if you're not part of that Facebook community, I encourage you to be part of it. Please endeavor to be part of our Facebook community now by clicking. I'm going to put a link now so you can direct. Yeah. Thank you, Stella. Stella is already in the chat. Please click the link that Stella just shared and be part of our Facebook forum. That is where we share resources, tools, insights, information about new opportunities, about new things that would be for your benefit as a journalist. Please click that link and you'll be allowed to join the forum. And second to the last announcement that I would bring to your attention is where you can also access lots of resources. I'm talking about the International Journalists Network, IJNet. Please visit www.ijnet.org for information about new opportunities, awards. The award that our participants won today was also announced on the IJNet platform. And I've always been using the IJNet for information on new opportunities myself. They also have lots of tools and resources that would benefit you as a journalist. So just visit www.ijnet.org for that, and please check that out. Then the last information for you to know more about the ICFJ Pamela Howard Forum on Global Crisis Reporting, please visit the International Center for Journalists website on www.icfj.org. So on behalf of the ICFJ team, and everybody that was instrumental in putting this session together, I want to thank Khalid once again and Akua for taking our time, for accepting our invitation, for sharing their tips and probably their patented secrets on grant application, on award application with us, and also for telling us, providing some insights on how to do investigative reporting. I'm going away with a lot of information today, and I know many of our participants today and those that will watch this video on YouTube, wherever you are getting us from, would also benefit from the information, tips, and guidelines that you've shared with us today. So thank you very much, and we'll always reach out again in case we need your expertise on our forum and in other venues. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and enjoy the rest of the day. And bye from me. So we are out in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.